Hello there and welcome to my studio. My name is Paige Johnson and I am a long arm quilter in Eagan, Minnesota. I'm also one of the Gamel educators. Welcome to my studio today. I quilt for hire. We have 5 Statlers and we do a lot of customer quilts. And I'd like to talk to you today about one of the things that I love doing on customer quilts. It's so quick and easy and it adds a lot. And that's doing names. Names, dates, any of those things that we can add as a label. And I'm going to show you how I can do this where it looks like embroidery. Embroidery that's done with my Statler. So here's a quilt I did a few years ago, and what I did was I quilted the entire quilt with an overall design, and then I went in and I put the leaves on top of it, and the leaves are done with different colors. They really stand out, and they stand out not because of the color of the thread, but the fact that there are probably 5 to 7 lines stitched right on top of each other. I call this technique a 7-layer salad. Kind of based on the salads we make with different toppings in them. They all go right on top of the other. All the stitching goes right on top of the next line. Here you can see where I've used it to put a name into a quilt. Now there is single line stitching here, and then I have stitched the names right over the top of that quilting. Here's a close-up of that stitching, and that stitching is done 7 times. The stitches themselves are placed one on top of the other, so you can see that those stitches are going into this pretty much the same distance. What happens is shrinkage. Shrinkage is real, and as this quilt shrinks up, the next layer of stitching is going to be laying about half of a thread width distance off. So when you get 7 layers of stitching, this line becomes very broad and very seeable. I've also done this on edge-to-edge quilting where I've taken out elements. This is a design that comes with your Statler, and all I've done is I've divided out that fish and I've put 7 designs right on top of it and quilted them in a different color. You can see down here I've done it also with purple and red. Some thread is just going to stand out more than others. You can play around with this and see what you think. So let's take a look at how I do this. So we're looking at Creative Studio now, and I have bumped my pattern setups to the side so that you can see all of my screen. I'm going to be doing the text feature, and there's a number of ways to get into the text. I prefer an icon. So I've clicked on my icon, and that has opened up my text setting panel, and this is where I'm going to put in the word that I want, whatever it may be. I'm going to click on the screen, the CAD screen, because that's where I want my word to go, and then I'm going to start typing, and I want the word Gamel. And you can see here that I've put this in. My typeset is block, and with block I have a start and an end, but there is no line connecting them. So if I were to look at the nodes on this, I'd see I have a number of jump stitches, and I've done this several times. However, I'd like to show you how to use the script feature so that we can get it to also continuously. So for that, I'm just going to click on cursive here. So I'm using the cursive, and I'm going to say OK. One of the things you'll notice is each pattern is individual. So these are individual patterns at this point, but they will sew continuously because the lines do connect them. Notice where our start point is out here. If I went to nodes or F7, I would see a jump stitch here. I want to get rid of that jump stitch before I start my next process. So I'm going to move my cursor over that pink node and I am going to divide it out. So now I have a start and an end that are right on my pattern. I'm going to select all of these letters and I'm going to rubber stamp them. And I'm going to put several stamps on my screen. Right click to stop that stamping. So my first one is still the individual letters, but every other pattern is now a single pattern. With blue handles, F11, those are the end anchors, I'm going to turn my snap on. And you'll notice that my grid is off, so I'm going to snap to the end of a pattern because there's no grid to snap to. And I am going to snap to the end of this pattern. I'm going to choose each name that I've written out and I'm going to snap the ends. So these are all exactly on top of one another. And I will have 7 patterns here. So if I stitch this, if I go in to start stitching, I'm going to speed that up just a little bit by hitting my plus sign. You're going to see that all of these patterns are going to stitch in the same direction, meaning I'm going to have a jump stitch each time. I'm going to hit escape to stop that stitching. I would like to avoid that. I'd like to make one of these patterns and I can click on my G. That was the first pattern that was placed on the screen. If I order join, all of those patterns are going to be joined together. Now, if I start my quilting, it's going to quilt all the way over and all the way back. Back and forth, left to right, right to left. The stitches are placed one on top of another. However, the quilt moves due to shrinkage, and that's what gives us that wider looking stitching. So now what I can do is I can put a boundary on my quilt showing where I want my pattern of words. Now if I were just to select this pattern, I'd get whatever pattern I clicked on. So I'm going to marquee select it by dragging my cursor across it. And I can then move this pattern into the space that I need. This is a really fun little technique. It doesn't take much time at all, and I do charge extra for putting names and dates on quilts. I hope you can try this at home.